To the webinar series entitled Enterprise Architect for Business Analysis. My name is Scott Hebbard. I'm the Communications Manager at Sparx Systems, and it's a great pleasure to have everybody here joining us for this session. It's also great to have Nithya here tonight, and together we're going to present on requirements management. I'll be the host of the session, and Nithya will present. So the topic for this session is managing requirement changes using Enterprise Architect. And our presenter is Nithya, and Nithya is a certified business analysis practitioner and has worked with Sparx Systems for a number of years and is our business solutions architect. And she has a wealth of experience around business analysis. So we're very lucky to have her and her expertise, and looking forward to hearing your presentation, Nithya. The agenda for the session: we will look at how to submit questions. We'll discuss how to manage requirement changes in Enterprise Architect. We'll examine a model with a number of diagrams, such as the maintenance diagram and baselines in Enterprise Architect, to see how it works. And then at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A with our audience. So how to ask questions. So a couple of people have already used a question dialogue to let us know that they can hear, but please note that audio is muted for all participants. You'll be able to type questions to the host, and if we can't answer all questions live, we'll follow up offline. Typically, we try to publish the webinar on the Sparx Systems YouTube site within 24 hours. I encourage you to have a look at it because there's hundreds of hours of free webinars available for you to consume. And we usually give ourselves a week to answer some of your questions and also put the webinar up on our Sparx Systems website under the webinar section. So you can re-watch the webinar. There is a go-to dialog box on the right of screen, so you can simply enter your text and hit send or hit enter on the numeric keypad, and that'll come through to myself as a host, and we'll try to respond to those questions at the end of the session. And if we don't get to them all, we will follow up offline. But right now, I'd like to hand over to Nithya, who's going to present on requirements changes. So I'm just going to make you the presenter, Nithya, and welcome. How are you, Nithya?
I'm very well, thank you, Scott. How have you been?
I've been very well.
Fantastic. Working from home, we don't get to see often.
No, it's a bit disappointing. So I can see the key takeaways has appeared on screen. So at this point, I'll hand over to you and look forward to hearing some of these key takeaways. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate all of you, for taking time to join us today and learn more about Enterprise Architect for Business Analysis. Without further ado, I will get on the topic because there's a lot to cover today. Now, let's get to the business. Today's topic is managing requirements changes in Enterprise Architect. So in the course of this webinar, if I ever mention EA, that means it is Enterprise Architect. I'm so used to saying EA, so I'll let you know if I ever mention EA, that is Enterprise Architect. Here are the learning points, the takeaways from today's webinar. How do we create and manage changes, defects, and issues? Secondly, how to use the maintenance diagram to visually represent. There are like two ways where you can create changes, defects, issues, and that's what the first 2 points cover. Then how to create a baseline of our requirements of not just mere requirements repository, then requirements design as well as an entire model. How to create a baseline, how to manage the changes, etc. How to compare changes comparing it to the baseline to the new version. How do we do that in Enterprise Architect? That's the third point. And finally, we will also dig into using auditing feature of Enterprise Architect to continuously track and monitor changes to requirements. This is what we are going to see today. Before getting into the details of how we do things to manage changes in enterprise architect, we first need to understand why we need change management practice. So we have all heard change is the only constant, right? It's a very famous, popular quote that we often use. Whether the change can be simple or dramatic, like this pandemic, or it can be an innovative, exciting change or a threatening change. No matter what, when it comes to IT administration, systems administration, for a business analyst, change is always threatening for IT managers and business analysts. Don't you agree? I think you'll all have that experience and the feeling. So why coming to the in the business, when there are a lot of changes, the businesses nowadays have complex structures. That means systems with so many interconnections. There are like a lot of matrix organizations, and systems are interconnected. We are actually dealing with systems of systems, many interconnected components and interfaces between them. So there could be thousands on thousands of components in a system, on which there will be like thousands and 10,000s of interfaces that are communicating with each other. So in this scenario, if there is a change, a simple change, imagine it could be a minor change, okay? For example, a product code. We think it's just a code, 3-4 characters max. What's the big deal? We can change it. But even though it sounds simple and it looks like a fairly simple change, the impact could be significant in reality. For example, in one of my experiences here, there's a university where the dean was a new dean was appointed, and the dean decided to change the subject code. It's a organization where the business school where lessons happen in multiple places. They have schools in many places around the globe, like Malaysia, Singapore, India, Turkey, and Australia, like that. So when this subject code would change, the impact analysis was not done properly. They ended up paying millions of dollars just for this one change. Can you guess why? Just this one code means they have to change this code in many systems. Many pamphlets which were already printed were wasted, so they had to go and do new pamphlets for this courses. And the system was integrated with organizations outside of this main organization. Everywhere they had to change, and they had the huge SAP ERP systems underneath. And yes, if we appoint an SAP consultant to do all these changes. Okay, so they ended up paying huge amounts of money just for this one change. Had an impact analysis been done, had technology, had they used appropriate technology to do the impact analysis, they would have avoided the situation. So this is just money, but think of systems where lives are at stake, because nowadays we are making systems that are that have artificial intelligence implementation, where the robots take control, where the robots make the decisions which the common people might use. For example, robotics in biomedical sciences or space research and whatnot, even a self-driving car. So there, the risk of not doing a proper impact analysis for a change, and even a slightest negligence would be a big contributing factor for a disastrous outcome. So that is why change management is so important than ever before. So now we go to the second point. Why do we need a repository-based change management system? So all the changes, the system requirements, everything were all documented using paper. They were all paper-based, right? Like when systems engineering started, like ever since the businesses were running. So all the architectural documents, requirements documents, the traceability between these documents, they were all paper-based. And sadly, even nowadays, there are a lot of organizations where there are paper-based documents maintained, even though they are in system, they print it out, they have a paper-based document and have another document which actually gives the traceability of the requirements and the architectural artifacts. It still happens. But thankfully, with the grace of Microsoft, I think like people have started using Word and Excel for many years now, and still they are using Word and Excel. It's 2021. We have to upgrade our machines, upgrade our technology. If we upgrade our cell phones, then businesses should be upgrading all these kinds of technologies where they can save money and save cost. So I think model-based, repository-based change management system would give them the benefit of easily managing the requirements, aligning the requirements to the design elements and the components and the implemented components, and also managing the traceability end to end from user story till the implementation, even to the level of user interface design and development. So technology has advanced so much, and people have realized that, businesses have realized that, and they are migrating towards model-oriented change management practice and requirements management practice. So that's with our second point. The third point is how enterprise architect facilitates change management. So now here's the real business. Okay. So I'm going to share.
Perhaps while you dive into enterprise architect, I could talk about an engineering-based example.
Very good, Scott. That would be very helpful. Thank you.
There was a US manufacturer of some frigates, and they were building the frigates for the European market, and some of the speeds that were represented were a surface speed using miles per hour, and the speed was also in knots so that the sailors would be able to make sense of it. And when it was adapted for the European market, the speed was changed to metric, obviously, in kilometers per hour and knots. And while those documents were maintained in a Word document, no one could actually see that changing this dial had a significant impact. And what if it had been managed in a repository-based system, they would have found is that particular dial sends messages to systems for the surface-to-air missiles, and it sends messages to different departments within the sub, and it sends messages to systems that calculate the fuel consumption, and all of these systems were impacted by changing that one dial. And this is where, when you have a model-based approach and everything's connected and you have complete traceability in a repository, then when you make a change to the requirement for that dial, saying it will no longer be in miles per hour, it will be in kilometers per hour, then you can instantly get an understanding of the impact that that may have on the rest of the ship, on other systems, and you'll be able to manage that change more effectively. So you talked about some business examples, but I thought it might just help to give a systems engineering perspective of some people that have experienced this challenge and what that impact can have. And sometimes, especially in those situations, this can have an impact on life and safety. It's not just about money as well. So it's important that you get it right the first time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott. To answer Stephen Bennett, yeah, we all know this, but there are some audience who would like to know the benefits of it. So it's always good to re-emphasize why we need to do this. Let's get into the details now. So hope you all can see my screen now. Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Fantastic. As you see in the screen, you can see the CCB team, that is Change Control Board team, and a change control process, and then the three aspects. So how I've structured this is, for any kind of technology implementation, it's better to approach the people, process, and technology. So the top two icons, the CCB team, this is the people side. Change control process is the process side. And in EA, we are using all these features like maintenance, auditing, and baselines to manage change. So what is CCB? It's a change control board. In most organizations, there will be a practice or there will be a group of people who manage change to requirements, because that itself is a separate discipline, and it deserves to have a separate discipline because of the complexity we discussed. For this example, there are like two users here, Tanya and Robert, who are part of the change control board. So who are they? Basically, they are change managers. So whenever people or any user submits a change request, that goes to Tanya and Robert, and they analyze the change for its rationale and for its priority and for its impact, and then make a decision on whether to proceed with approve the change or not. So there you go. And there's an emergency change committee. There will always be situations where changes are urgent changes, and it needs to be done straight away. So there will always be someone or a group of people, a committee, who will be able to give a recommendation on how to approach this emergency change. Okay. I will go to a different workspace. So here it is, so that you can see the project browser. You can all see the project browser. So the next thing is the change control process. So now we have seen the people side, and of course, inclusive of CCB team, there are a lot of other people like the requirements manager, business analysts, and everyone who is part of the team and the stakeholders. They all come into play, but the CCB team is the important one for change management process. That's why I've shown you this part. And here's the change control process. Is very, I think most people will know this, will be familiar with this ITIL process, where users submit a change request. It will be reviewed and prioritized, and then a change impact analysis will be performed. If it is an emergency, it just gets scheduled with some recommendations, and implementation happens, review the change, etc. If it is not an emergency change, first thing is the change rationale valid? Is it justified? If yes, is there a negative impact? No, then they will approve it, and it will be scheduled accordingly. It's not like, okay, fine, approve, you just go and implement it. No, there's a scheduling process, and some decisions are taken in this scheduling process as well, so that does not scope creep, so that does not lead to stretching of budgets unnecessarily, etc. And then implementation is coordinated. Then the release happens, implementation review happens, and the change request closes. This is the life cycle of a change, and this is the process. It's always good to have this kind of a process diagram known to people, like how the change is, rather than just instructions. It's good to have in a visual representation. So now that we have seen these two parts, I will also tell you like about the users. These are like fictional characters. There'll be lots and lots of users in a real life environment, but here, for the sake of time, I've created few actors. Sandra Weissman is a business analyst, and as you can see in the top right corner, Sandra Weissman, I've logged in as Sandra Weissman, the business analyst. Hope you can see. If it's too tiny, I will just go and zoom the part. Yes, there you go. Next, we have some business stakeholders. The CCB, which we saw, and then some development people, IT support, etc. The reason why I have these actors on a diagram is also because in Enterprise Architect, we have really cool collaboration features, which are new in 15.2. And if you have noticed, if you have seen our previous webinar in for EA collaboration features, there's a beautiful demonstration of how to use the collaboration features. So I would recommend you to go and see the webinar to use. These are like collaboration diagrams basically, so you can, the person can actually discuss or send message or put some review notes here, discuss. So if Sandra's discussing something, say, I want to know where the policy document is or something in a chat informally, it just goes in under name. So it's good to have these collaboration diagrams, and it helps managing change efficiently as well. It's rapid communication and collaboration, which is important for any kind of module management. So now that we have covered this part, let's go into the maintenance part. Okay, so looking into the maintenance okay, please note I'm using a subset of EA example model. If you want to know, if you want to follow the webinar, you can go and see the EA example model, which can be found and start and help an EA example model, because in the last webinar I did, people were asking like where's the model. So I'm just showing you where it is. Let's go to start, help, and open EA example model and get to see the model. Okay, so here we go into the maintenance part. Okay, in order to see the maintenance features of Enterprise Architect, go to Construct, which is in the main menu, and there is change management and project management. So these are the features that we are going to look now. So here you go, construct, change management, project management. First of all, let's see, like if I want to create a particular change or for an element, I want to submit a change request. How do I do? Change can be like, it can happen. You can submit change in context with one particular element, or it could be I'm just submitting a change and it's up to the architects or the analyst to link it to the appropriate use case or whatever requirement it is related to. For example, if a business stakeholder is asking for a change, like I want this to be changed, I don't the user interface crappy, I cannot work with this, can you modify it, can you make the fonts a little bit bigger, it's too small, those kind of changes, if that will be coming from like non-IT stakeholders, so that the changes can be an element by itself. Sometimes what happens is, if it's maintained by the support team, the tech team, we can actually make it embedded within that particular element. For example, let's say create account. So and then I say the changes window, show the changes window, I get the changes window here. So this maintenance window is for like an overview, will give you all the maintenance artifacts, or you submit features, changes, documents, issues, defects, tasks, anything that is relevant to this particular use case. I'm talking in reference to this use case, create account. Okay, so there's a change which is created, like account name should only be in alphanumerical characters and should not allow any special characters. So this is a new change. Okay, and status is new, priority is low, looks like it's implemented and resolved. Okay, fine. So let's create another change. So for creating an account, okay, account updates must happen instantly. account date up. Must happen instantly rather than to, let's just assume, wait for like 24 hours. Just a hypothetical situation, so I'm just making this up. So this is a particular change. This could also be logged in as an issue saying, okay, account updates to reflect the account updates in the system, it takes 24 hours, which is like, too long. We don't want that. So that could be an issue which triggers this particular change. Okay, so this is a change. If you want to see the new changes, or want to see the set of changes that have been created, so here you go, there are new changes. I'll refresh, Control S, and changes. Okay, recently requested changes, and we have this recently requested change. So this change will go through the process of of review and approval. For example, if if you want to create any documentation, you can create the documentation in there. So find in project browser, it's in here. So now what you can do is you can discuss about this particular change using this collaboration feature with your team members, or you can send messages, chat, and comment, and etc. So in order to review the change and consider the the impact and whatnot around this particular requirement. This is what it is. So let's, for example, say there's an issue. Let's move on to a different use case just for change. Let's see, add to shopping basket. Okay, let's take add to shopping basket, and I would say okay, the shopping cart does not get updated when the quantity of items are updated or are edited before proceeding to payment. Okay, somebody says, okay, there's an issue there, and there it is. But let's assume that this issue is coming to the IT team, and then they say, and actually there's a update button in the next to the item that was that's in the cart. There's an update button, but the user has not noticed it, or it could be the reasons of poor UI design, or it's just that the user didn't notice it. So that's not actually a problem of the system, but actually the user didn't see it. But still, it is an issue. So how do we change it? Like we can, you can discuss this issue with your team, and then come up with a solution saying, okay, let's just do it automatically. No matter, we'll remove that button to update the cart. We'll just automatically update before the proceed to payment button, or when the proceed to payment button is clicked, this update card first happens, and then the process moves on to the next level. So let's say the change would be update card for quantity automatically before payment process begins. Okay, so this could be the changes and issues here. So you refresh, you can find it out. So when the change manager, all the change manager need to do is, I'll just close everything. The change manager will just go and have a look at, okay, what are the new changes, and then goes there, and I want all the requested changes, refresh, and I get all the requested changes. Suppose say Sandra Weissman is a part of CCB, just and then I review these changes and see whether it needs to be updated or not. If it needs to be, if the rationale seems to be valid, I move on to impact analysis. So how do I do an impact analysis? Let's say, so it's the change is related to this one, the automatically update cart for quantity automatically before payment process begins, is related to this use case here, add to shopping basket, this one here. Okay. I select this in the project browser and then go to the inspector window. So the inspector window shows me how much, what are all the elements it is related to. So these are all the relationships it has, and then looks like there are classes, components, a requirement, a parent requirement, looks like a parent requirement, a UI, and a user, a client. Okay. No, it's a system client. Okay. So these are all the items this particular element is related to. This is from the inspector window. If we go to the traceability window, there are multiple levels. Now it goes add to shopping basket. So this is related to the client and shopping basket, and view basket, etc., which is again owned by, it has association to items page, it has association to remove from basket and clearing basket, etc. So this shopping basket is a part of provide online sales. There you go. There's more, the relationship. So provide sales, which is a part of create secure online ordering system. So there's like a whole bunch of components or whole bunch of artifacts that are that may be impacted due to this one particular change. Okay, this is one way of doing impact analysis. I will show you another way, which hopefully you, some of you may know it, but still I will show exactly how to do that. Okay. Okay, there's okay, I will create a new diagram here. Oh, sorry, popped up the pop-up in the other screen. So let's say it's maintenance screen. You can use it, and then we're talking about add to shopping basket. So I just drop it here, okay, and then right click on it and say insert related elements. Okay, and when you click on this, pop-up keeps occurring in a different okay, yes, this dialog box will appear. So as you can see, it's only one relationship level, and you have got all these, like, 1, 2, 3, 5 elements that are related to it. Let's say 5. Let's go up till 5 levels, and then we have selected like almost all relationships. See, like this. So look at how much of, how many artifacts that are related to this one particular element. All this will be impacted. So it's, in order to do a thorough impact analysis, this is very, very essential. So you can select what elements you want to analyze from this particular element type filter box, and then the connector filter box, and what link is it, incoming or outgoing, etc. But still, if I insert all these things, I say I select all and insert all these things, let's just see how much of interconnections this one particular look at it. Look at the complexity. We just thought it's one simple change, but look at the complexity. This is what a proper impact analysis looks like. Okay, There's a beginning.
And some of the options on the dialog allow you to limit the namespace and all of those elements to give you a simplified version of this diagram too. There's lots of questions coming in. If I could maybe just throw some broad ones. So far you've shown that you've been able to manage your changes, your issues. Someone mentioned bug changes and use cases. So what's the benefit of using Enterprise Architect over something like Word for all of these different types of elements that are in the repository?
Absolutely. That's, I think, the insert related elements and doing an impact analysis diagram basically demonstrated the benefit. Consider that, just think that all the requirements are managed in a Word document or an Excel sheet, and then the traceability is maintained in an Excel sheet as well in a different table. You'll be moving between tabs to find out this kind of, look at the complexity of the system. Like, there's no way a Word and even if you run some macros and scripts, there is a fair chance that you will miss out on some of valuable analysis impact analysis insights without a tool like Enterprise Architect, without a repository based tool. So that is the beauty of the repository based tool, because it's a single version of truth. If you change one thing in one place, that means, for example, just for example, even like changing a name of a class, etc., you just change it there, and then it just goes on to all the different views which uses this particular class element. Say line item, just say line Q item or something. It's just there everywhere, like in all the places, just things are changed. And then the for example, consider the example I cited before, where the university dean changed the subject code. If it was happening with a model-based repository, they would and then like this is integrated into the development as well. The minute changes in one place, and then the code generation happens and updates, it's all synchronized. It just moves to all the places. There's no need for like too many consultants sitting and updating just one code in all the places. So you save a lot of time, you save a lot of effort, and obviously resource and cost. So that's why I recommend using Enterprise Architect. That makes your life so easy. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does. And there's just one other question that, like, can I assign a change owner? So
Absolutely.
perhaps you'd just like to talk about how easy it is to assign resources and to change the owner and author for
I will
element
continue.
in
Absolutely. So going into the changes window, show the changes window, and then I select and shopping thing. And then for this, you need to add a task. So if you want to say you want to assign this to a person, you can easily add a task, a maintenance task. Okay. Or copy this to a maintenance task, and then when the task is created, you can assign it to a particular person. I will explain it to you in detail in the in the next part of this presentation, so that we don't miss out on the time for the important stuff.
No worries, I'll let you get back.
Fantastic. So now that we know how to create and manage changes, defects, and issues using the maintenance constructs, like the project management, you can have issues and tasks. These are the project level. What I showed, what I showed was element level. You can also do it at a project level. So there's project issues. People are submitting project issues here. You can create a new issue, and then a medium, you have the owner. This is what Scott asked in the previous question. Let's say, for example, I create a project issue saying, if this is the example is about online delivery of books from an online bookstore. So it's delivery of shipping is delayed. Delayed due to warehouse lockdown or something. Can you say warehouse lockdown? This is an issue. So how do we solve this problem? This is a business problem. So I put it as a project level issue, and then put a date for it, and I say like the owner is okay. I will assign it to Valli Sundar, who is a business analyst, fellow business analyst of Sandra Weissman, and then put in some discussions. Okay. And then apply. So once this particular issue can be discussed, and a resolution can be, people can decide on a resolution and say this is the resolution, and this can be just a comment. And then once this issue is discussed, a task can be created related to this particular issue. Okay. Here you go, and then there's a project task. We can create project tasks in the similar fashion. So this is project level, and that's where you assign the owner, etc. So let's close this. So creating, managing changes, defects, and issues at the project level and at the content level using the maintenance, constructs here in the toolbar is complete. Next, we'll see maintenance diagram to visually represent a change. Sometimes, I want the change to be a separate artifact in my repository. I don't want it to be hidden under each and every element, because I would like to, as a senior lead business analyst, I want to know, I'd like to see a package with full of, all the changes that it holds, a catalog of changes, a catalog of issues. I would like to have that view. How would I do that? So for that, what you can do is you can create a maintenance diagram. I'll close this part. You can create a maintenance diagram for that. So there are two approaches based on the scenario and based on the complexity of the project. So here's the change. I create a new diagram, and in the extended group of the diagram perspective, there's a maintenance diagram. So once you create this maintenance diagram, I'll create it just to demonstrate like why this diagram. So the toolbox for this diagram, will have changes, issues. You can create test cases, a test, a defect, and even a review element in order to review all these elements. I'll just zoom in just so you know what's in there. It might be really tiny on your screen, so I'm just zooming it for you. Okay. So there you go. So that's why we need a diagram to visually represent. So just avoid confusion. I'll delete this. Yes. So here are some of the changes. View basket, add, alter quantity against the entries, add button to update change. For example, with our change that we created with the shopping basket, this particular requirement will become, or change will become obsolete, because we no longer need the change to update the update button at all. So that would be redundant one, or said like we don't need this particular change. And there's account, create account. So these are some of the changes that are logged in. So for the, again with the question that was posed previously, if you go to the properties, you can see there's this keywords, who created, etc., and then the project, file name, etc. Then you can go and add some tags. So tag values is a great way to capture additional properties. So if you want to, the general practice is people use MDG with an enterprise architect, create their own profile, which is organization specific, in order to capture the properties that are relevant to their industry or relevant to their organization. So here we can just add, owner, reviewer, etc., and then add value to them. Can even be taken from the users of this particular system. That can also happen. Alrighty. library, layout tools. I think we have covered everything. Some functional change. Yeah. Just to demonstrate the idea of having okay, set visibility. Okay, forget about that, guys. I just got carried away on a different thing. Let's get back to our demonstration. So these are the changes, and here are some of the issues, and here are some of the defects, okay, which are logged in. So when a change manager or the business analyst want to know about all the changes, they just go in and see to this catalog and then find out which are the new ones, which are the the diagrams can be time aware as well. You can make sure it's version control. You can set filters to see the latest elements, etc. It's all possible in a visual representation of changes. One other feature is, for example, I will open the add shopping basket and then go to the inspector element, and I can see the details, and this is a change which is not visually represented yet. It is captured as an internal change to this particular use case. If I want this element to be externalized, to want it in the catalog like we did in the like the ones stock levels on financial reports don't include, this is a defect like this. If we want this to happen, what I can do is move to okay, that actually moves it to this particular defect, links this to this particular defect, but this is not the right defect we are looking for, are we? So I'll just go and show the changes window and then click on this particular thing and then say move to maintenance features, maintenance defects, or create as new element, and then create this element in all perspectives. Where do you want to create? Add element to a diagram and then save it. And here you go, it is saved here. I should have opened the change diagram rather. Okay, here see, this is where the element is. Let me move this from from this diagram and put it on the right diagram. Update cart. Okay, I'm gonna put it on the right diagram, and I want this to be in this catalog. So just go and put it in the changes catalog, and I can see again there is as a business analyst, I can see these two elements are related. I put a, say for example, trace relationship, and then see like what is the impact. I select this element and say insert related elements. Okay, 5 levels. Again, like I can see the impact of one change that is related. Okay, there you go. That is the visual representation. Going back again, now we get to the baseline feature, how to create baselines to manage changes. Okay. So in order to create a baseline, let's say I just want to create a baseline of this maintenance package, okay, this package here. So go to this design, the menu here, design, and then model. I'll go a little bit slowly for people who are actually trying to follow in their own model. Design, and then model management, that is here, and then manage, and then manage baselines. Okay, so under design, model management, manage baselines. When you click on it, you get the baselines dialog box. Create a new baseline. Let's call it version 1.0, and then say OK. a baseline is created. So what this basically it is doing underneath is creating a copy of this of the elements in this particular package in an XMI and holding it as a baseline item, so that when changes are happening in future, we can compare it with the baseline and see what are the changes. Do we have to revert back or not, or do we have to keep the changes? Or we can also have different versions, baselined, like version 1.0, 1.2, etc. Okay, let's just make change and then see what happens. Update cart quantity. So I will just say there's a spelling mistake here. So I'll say quantity or automatically. Okay, I've corrected the typo, and then let's just see what happens with the baseline. Okay, there's another simple way of getting the baseline. Just right click on the package that your baseline. So you can do the baselining for the entire model, entire separate package at any level. If you do it for a big model, that means like the time taken to compare would be a bit longer. So that's why I'm choosing a small package for demonstration. So I go in here, maintenance, package control, and then package baselines. And you can see the shortcut Control Alt V, and then click on it. The same window or the dialog will come there. So there we have our version 1.0. I will just say like, okay, I made some changes. I want to see what the changes are. So there you go. So it shows me this particular element have changed. So what has been changed is that
it might be hard to see too, but they're highlighted in green, all the changes.
I will just, good point, Scott. I'll just show them. So these are the model elements. Hopefully it's better now. Better to say. So there's maintenance phase 1 changes, and then the date modified, and then what has been modified. The text update card for quantity automatically paying before payment process begins is what changed. Okay, previously there was a typo error, and here it is not. So this is where the baseline comparison is useful. You don't necessarily need to manage your baseline inside the model repository. You can even manage, you can export this file into a separate, let's say, options where you want always. There are options to select the filters, and there are some settings which you can see at your own time, and then say export this file into an XMI, say my version 1, and then I save it. So now the export is completed. What happens is, say for example, I delete this selected baseline, and I just want to compare it with with the baseline that I have moved it to a file or a DVMS, etc. Okay, so I'm going to files, version 1, open. Okay, so import file version 1. This is what I should be doing. Sorry guys, I've imported. I say version 1.0, and I've got this backup outside and got my version, the baseline information back into my model in order to compare. If it is in a file separately, you still can do comparison, compare model to file, the current model to a particular file. Okay, I'll compare it to version 1, and then again we will see the changes. So the changes you're seeing is basically comparing it to the file that I've saved in my local machine. Okay. So that is with a baseline. So baseline can happen. You can create baselines in the model, outside the model, as a file, or in any hard disk and in a database. There are lots of several databases supported in Enterprise Architect. You can choose one of the databases and have your baseline managed there. Let's quickly move on to the next topic, using auditing to track and monitor changes to requirements. So for auditing, what we can do is go to configure. See this one here, the last menu in this main menu bar, and then model, and there is auditing. I'll just show this. Configure, and then model, and then auditing. Click on this, and this is the audit view. Basically, you can do an audit setting. You need to enable auditing in order to, have audit logs. First thing is enabling, and then audit XMI import. These are various options which you can have. I've just selected the, a core audit level, and then all audit options are selected here, and then say okay. So now I'm changing something in my system. Let's say I want to change some issue. I'm creating another issue 1. Let's say save, and then go to audit view, and then say refresh. There you go. So my model has seen that there's a new element here, and this is, see, when I double click on it, there's the system output window actually shows the audit history and what was changed. A new element has been created by S. Wiseman, and all these information are there for you to look into. So this auditing, when you enable auditing, if the model is huge, then there could be some kind of a delay. Like you have to make sure you choose the right options so that you capture the audit logs that you require without having to wait for long. So that is something, you can turn off auditing. Another important tip is if you can turn off auditing before you're doing a huge XMI import or XMI export, or you're adding, like, automatically using script, you're adding a lot of elements into the model or deleting a lot of elements into the model. Turn off auditing if you do not want to capture that, because if you're doing a huge amount of import export, that means it's kind of done a controlled environment, I believe. So that's where your auditing helps. You can even filter by date and time, by user. So here there's only one user who has changed, so the view by type and user. So this is audit view. Got 3 more minutes. I think let's spare a few more minutes for question and answers. With this, we have covered all the topic. Yes.
All right.
So here.
Thanks, Nithya. I might just do a couple of rapid fire questions and let you take a breath for 2 seconds. There's a question here: how do I size to change? Example, adding scores or t-shirt size, like in an agile user story. So with Enterprise Architect, you can add your own custom tagged values, as Nithya showed, and you can add t-shirt sizes and all of those sorts of things.
Yes.
So that is possible within Enterprise Architect and very easy to do. There was questions about how do you know who's made the change, and I think that jumped the gun a bit, because you can see through auditing and baselines, you can see what changes have been made to your requirements and who made those changes and when they were made. So
yes.
that's good.
Yep.
I'd like to make the point that working from home, because you can save those baselines as a file, you can have people working independently, and then you can then merge those changes in later if that is relevant too, or you can have it in a centralized repository. So there are a number of different ways to work there. I suppose there's the question about, can Enterprise Architect manage an agile change management process? So perhaps you might be able to talk to that, Nithya.
I was opening up the Kanban views.
Yes.
AI has support for agile, like you can have agile perspective, creating. Okay, let me create a diagram just to demonstrate that.
Yeah, we might not have enough time to show
Okay.
all these answers,
I'll
but
just use the existing diagram. We have this, Kanban diagram, which is 1 stage, 2 stage workflows. You can capture the iteration, and then there's this user stories you can create. This user story could also capture defects, etc. Yes, once the user story is captured, and then this is not in separate Trello board or something. It is there in the model repository. This user story can easily be converted into a requirement, and then I will find the user persona diagram, which will be able to demonstrate things better. Okay, where are you? User stories. Okay, here you go. So this is a user story, and then based on this user story, as a stock control manager, I want to be able to list stock levels for a selection of titles. And a stock control manager has requested, this is the user story of a stock control manager. So based on this, a requirement can be, created, and then further details for that particular requirement can also be shown. Like, for example, compartment visibility. Just say you want to create tags, want to know about the maintenance things and reviews, what reviews happen, testing, just selecting all these things. And then you can see, okay, there's a tag which says volatility is a medium. And if you have captured all the, important artifacts, like, what is the priority, who is the owner, and like, what's the test case, user acceptance factor, everything, or everything will be listed in this one view. I hope that answers the question.
yes, so you showed Kanban diagrams, you showed user stories. So Enterprise Architect is built from the core to support collaboration, to support agile development, and traditional waterfall approaches as well. So that's good. There's a couple of questions from people about how you might be able to share the diagrams and publish. So could you perhaps mention ways that
Scott,
you could share this?
You there?
Sorry. There are a couple of questions about how you can share the documents and the reports and the requirements. So perhaps you could talk about some of Enterprise Architect's capabilities for sharing and reporting.
Oh, fantastic. So here, for example, let's take this requirements model, and then you can go into the publish menu there. I'll just open, zoom it for you. There's this publish menu, which you can use to create custom documents. There's a report builder. You can just print the diagram or save the diagram, and there's a lot of ways to publish as CSV, export as XMI, etc. Okay, so there are a lot of features there.
Yes.
You have
and you can also
export time to actually publish. Do we have time to publish sample document?
No, I don't. It's fine to just show that there's a publish tab. You can publish to PDF, to document format, to HTML format, and there's lots of capabilities there. There was another question saying, is there a calendar or diary system in AA that can help us manage task deadlines?
Absolutely. There's a Gantt chart view. I will open the Gantt view as well. This is the diagram Gantt view, which will allow you to have set a start and end date and how much is completed. So this will allow you to manage and monitor the tasks. And so this is one. EA also has integration with the DOORS and other third-party tools like Jira. If your organization is using Jira or any other tool to capture tasks, so that is another way.
Yes. So so that's good. I'll just leave it with one last question, and then we'll try and wrap things up. But in addition to that, there's a question here saying, can Enterprise Architect automatically generate unique reference numbers for each element? So
Absolutely, EA can generate unique reference number, saying that you can auto-generate names, auto-generate.
and
Sorry, my son is here, so I just had to mute for a bit.
no, that's all right. And element GUIDs as well provide those
Yes,
unique identifiers. So
yes.
you can auto-generate names and details and also GUIDs. So look, there's lots of questions, lots of people saw what you were presenting, and what we've done in an hour is we've been able to show you how you can create changes, defects, issues, how you can do auditing, how you can manage baselines, how you can get an instant impact analysis by dragging an element on screen and inserting related items. We've looked at reporting, we've looked at elements, we've looked at traceability, we've looked at maintenance diagrams, being able to apply maintenance and tests. And the one great thing that I think is really fantastic is that Enterprise Architect does every single aspect, and it's all managed within Tool. And that also includes collaboration and communication, reporting, documentation, and publication, as well as the requirements management process. So it offers a far superior solution than using pen and paper or whiteboards and Word and Excel documents, which many people do, because you have all of that integration between the calendar, the resources, the Kanban diagrams, the business processes, and the requirements changes, and it's all done in one tool. So I know you had lots to get through, and I kept interrupting with questions, but it's been great to see that all showcased.
Yes,
This will be
it's
made
always
available on
good.
YouTube and will be published shortly. So thank you so much for showing so much information in an hour. There's never enough time to show Enterprise Architect to its fullest, but I think you've done an incredible job at showing so many features in an hour. And lots of people have asked for the video on YouTube so that they can review it and go over some of these things again. So thanks very much. Did you have any final comments before I close the session, Nithya?
Thank you for the compliments, Scott, and thanks everyone for your time. I see a lot of interesting questions in the questions section. We'll surely get back to you with appropriate answers. As Scott suggested, I'm already kind of ticked on to answer these questions, but due to lack of time, we have to actually send you the answers as a follow-up for the webinar. Thank you, guys. It's really always my pleasure to showcase Enterprise Architect.
And thanks everyone for joining us. Look forward to seeing you at future webinars, and take care of one another, look after yourself, and stay safe. And it's been great to learn more about EA, and we look forward to providing more free webinars in 2021 to help you get your work done, covering everything from requirements management, simulation, code engineering, systems engineering, and enterprise architecture. So thanks very much. Thanks, Nithya, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. See ya.